Folks, welcome back. And now we're going to talk about the wonderful world of information security. So what we talked about before is the privacy rule and actually the privacy notice. And now we're going to talk about information security, or the security guidelines. So let's think about the difference between those two. Because I know some of you are thinking, well, wait a second, didn't we just talk about that? Well, the privacy rule is meant to limit a credit union's disclosure of non-public personal information to unaffiliated third parties, such as by selling that information. The security guidelines, or information security, addresses the safeguarding the confidentiality and security of information, and then ensuring the proper disposal of that information. So think of it as how we're telling our members, well, here's how we're not going to share information. We're going to protect your private information, member information. And then now, here's how we're actually going to do that. So this is going to be done by the hardware and the software, and of course all of us as people in the credit union, the employees, how we're going to protect that information. So some interesting facts, the state of the internet. These are just some great, interesting facts. There are slightly over 1.3 billion internet users worldwide. This is according to internetworldstats.com. That makes up approximately 19%, and those are just from North America. That means the other 81% are from the rest of the world. So the rest of the world makes up the majority of computers, users, or internet users in the world. Once connected to the internet, your computer is accessible to those users. The 1950s American bank robber Willie Sutton once asked why he robbed the banks. He said he robbed the banks because that's where the money is. Today it's in cyberspace. So think of it this way. When somebody steals your car or steals your purse or steals your wallet, that's a one-on-one crime. They did that just to you. When we're talking about cyberspace, we're talking about 1 in a billion. So when a hacker or somebody is trying to get information, they're trying to get a bunch of people's information, and they want to use it for bad things. So that means that the criminal is also anonymous and can be located anywhere. It's not the person that walks up to you and steals your wallet or your purse off of you. And the thing to think about in the cyberspace world, it's not about you, it's nothing personal against you, it's about gaining access to your system to collect that personal information and then use that in a very bad way for fraud and other things. So what is information security? Well, it needs to be thought of as a process, not a to-do list, not a project, not something you check off one day and you're like, good, I can go on to another project and I can leave that one behind. This is something that has to be done every day. Every day we go to work, we've got to think about this process of keeping this information secure and protected. And where this comes from is the NCUA Rules and Regs Section 748 Security Program. And it's interesting, each federally insured credit union will develop a written security program within 90 days of the effective date of insurance. So as soon as they become a federally insured credit union, they have 90 days to write a security program. So again, we need to think about this as a way of doing business daily. Information security has to do with all aspects of the credit union's information. Someone who gains access to the credit union's systems could easily divert member funds, and that's not a good thing. Physical credit union security is the responsibility of everybody. Every single employee has to think about that every day. So what are some of the ways we can do this? What are some of the ways we can improve that security by ourselves? We're not the people writing the code. We're not the people maintaining those programs, but we do carry out the loans. We deal with the signature cards and the member information from the get-go. And that information, it needs to be protected almost more than some of the computer systems. So ways that we can do that: not leaving files out on your desk, putting those in locked drawers, locked file cabinets. When you get up from your computer and you're going to the bathroom or you're going to lunch, locking your Windows desktop or your operating system. The best way to do that is Windows L. So the little Windows icon plus L, and that locks your computer. And then it takes a password, of course, to get back into your computer. Now that's saying if everybody in the room has a password protected system. And if you don't, hopefully you'll get one right now, because that's a very big deal. You can't really lock the Windows and then somebody just open it back up without a security password. Can anybody out there tell me what is the best way to dispose of information that doesn't have to be kept? Obviously a loan application has to be kept. The signature card has to be kept. But there's a lot of things that we put memory information on that doesn't have to be kept. So what is the best way? Shredding. Shredding that information. Not putting it in your trash can and then leaving for the night and hoping the janitor doesn't use it later. Where does this information come from? Well, the goal is to ensure the security, confidentiality, integrity, and the proper disposal of information. And the standard set forth for the security guidelines comes from again the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act and the FACT Act, and then of course NCUA Rules and Regulations, Section 748. Each credit union must identify and evaluate risk to its information. They need to develop a plan to mitigate those risks. They need to implement the plan. They need to continually test that plan to make sure it doesn't have holes in it or isn't the most secure that they can make it. And then, of course, updating that plan when they find anything wrong with it. So the CIA triad, this is a big, complicated slide, and really all it means is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's what CIA stands for. And that's really the only thing you need to know is it's the core principles of information security. And I really just want to talk about confidentiality. It's the term used to prevent the disclosure of information to unauthorized individuals or systems. So that's really what we're talking about here, keeping that member information confidential. Now some of you might ask, what is availability? Well, it just means that out of all the things that we do to store that member information, it also needs to be readily available for the members. When they go to an ATM and they need to know their account balance, they got to know it right then. So it's still, their information still needs to be available to them. So then we move on to designing security controls. Well, I realize everybody in the room is not their job is not to design the security, not buying the hardware and the software. But there are some things that even out of this we look at and we have control over, and we can implement daily in our lives with the members. Encryption, password protecting or encrypting documents that are sent in and out of network. Don't ever assume that email or the internet is secure, even emails that are sent in your network. I think it's a bad habit to form to get in that habit of thinking, I'm in network, I can send emails to my coworkers. And you're absolutely right. The problem is, as soon as you accidentally send that information outside of your network and you haven't password protected it or you haven't encrypted it, and then all of a sudden it's out there. And once it's out on the internet, anybody can get to it. And then there's also physical security. Like we talked about, locking the files in your file cabinets or locked drawers, but also making sure people aren't, in the teller area where they don't need to be, or file rooms, making sure file rooms cannot be accessed by the public. Technology is a 90-10 rule. 10% of it deals with the actual technology. And 90% of it deals with the people and the processes that those people go through to try to protect that information. So think of it this way, technology is only part of information security. People and policy are just as important, if not more important, than the technology itself. And this includes people at all levels, from the tellers, the loan officers, people in accounting that don't necessarily deal with members every day, It takes everybody. Technology alone cannot keep us secure. People are the last layer of defense. Security is everyone's responsibility, every single employee's. Say it with me, security. You are it. So what kind of awareness do we have? What's security awareness? Well, think about when you're on the internet or on your email. You've got to be careful of software downloads because they can contain Trojans, and they infect your system as soon as you click on them. Viruses from emails, those great emails that you get from your friends that have a funny video or a funny PowerPoint presentation. If you don't know where it's coming from, or you don't know if it's infected or not, it's probably not a good idea to open it. And that usually is addressed in everyone's credit union policy on internet usage. Phishing. We all know from being in the financial industry, seeing it all the time, especially with our own personal accounts, how easily we get emails and phone calls saying your account has been accessed. We need to have your personal information so we can, change the information. And it usually is not from our actual financial institution. Most incidents are unintentional and they can be avoided by just kind of following some of these steps. So how do we do security awareness? Well, staff training, prepare and implement the staff for those procedures, testing those key controls, and then thinking about service providers. How many of us go through and we don't even realize that people are walking around our credit unions daily that we don't even know if they're actually supposed to be here or not. People shouldn't be allowed to roam the premises unescorted. Physical access controls to prevent unauthorized persons from entering those sensitive areas, such as the teller area or the file room, things like that. You can even think about your audit team, us, Waypoint. I mean, we need to have badges. We need to be recognized by people as to who we are and what we're there for, but that doesn't mean we just should have free access to every single place in the building. Pest control people, your delivery guys, and then in a lot of credit unions, there are janitors that aren't necessarily on staff. They are a contract labor that the credit union hires to come in a couple of days a week and clean. And it's typically after hours. So we need to think about those people and what do they have access to. So thinking that the credit union is safe at night because it's locked up and only the janitor is in there, I can go ahead and leave a loan file or a member signature card out. We need to keep those things in mind. So this is just a really pretty slide, and it's got a lot of stuff on it, but really the things I want to key in on are just a couple of things. Think about it. You're an employee of the credit union, so a lot of this is out of your control. You're not in charge of the network, and you're not in charge of the applications or the antivirus software. You're not in charge of the operating system patches. So the analogy is you don't build the building, but you have keys or codes to the building. You can get in the door. So you need to think about your internet usage. You need to think about opening attachments from friends and co-workers that you might not know where those are coming, or where those have been, where they're coming from. How many of you out there are allowed to use personal emails? Well, probably most of us are, but we need to think about the attachments that come along with those. And a lot of it probably is harmless, and our friends didn't mean to send us an Excel spreadsheet or a PowerPoint that had a virus in it. So we've got to be aware of those things when they come in. And then encrypted communications, just a reminder, we need to make sure we're password protecting those documents and keeping that member information safe. And then also our own passwords on our computers. If you don't have a strong password, if you're using your own name or date of birth, probably not a good idea. Phraseology is a good way to have a strong password, and we love to use symbols and letters, and of course uppercase and lowercase, and so think about those things when you're making your password. Don't make it so complicated that you can't remember it. And that's a good thing about phraseology. You can use a term like, I love my credit union. And, you use symbols and letters in there. So think about those. And then, on your access controls, passwords, you've got to keep those strong. You don't share them. You don't share your passwords. Think about how your stuff is stored. Locked cabinets, locked files. We've got to treat that member information just like we would our own. So, locking your computer when you're away from your desk is a great way to it's a good habit to get into. And we need to remember that when we're on the internet, we need to surf safely. Obviously, stick to your credit union's policies and practices on the internet usage. But if you somewhat have free reign and you're able to surf, well, then you need to know you're not going to go to a bad part of town and walk there. So why would you do it on the internet? Don't go to those parts of the internet that probably have lots of viruses and things. You need to assume email is not secure. Inside network, outside network, it's just a good habit to get into. And then keep in mind the credit union, at its discretion, can monitor employees' internet and email usage. They just need to have disclosed that to all their employees, which probably most of yours have. And one thing to think about when you are on the internet, and let's say a friend sends you an attachment and you click on it and something looks like it's happening to your computer. Well, if that happens, you've got to notify management right away, because you've got to get the problem solved. Because they're ultimately responsible to make sure that member information doesn't get compromised. And then beyond that, the board of directors are ultimately responsible, because they're the ones that have to, go over with the manager approving and reviewing that security policy annually. So I thank you guys today for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.